About the name. It was the 1980s, a crazy, absurd time, and we were art students, says Stephen Orm, explaining the quirky moniker Dinosaur Designs. He hatched the business in 1985 with his now wife, Louise Olson, and Leanne Rossler when they were students at Sydney's City Art Institute. 30-odd years later, the jewelry and tabletop company, sans Rossler since 2010, has become a veritable design powerhouse, with 8 stores worldwide and 90 employees, including 48 in its Sydney studio, where every resin piece is hand-poured. The couple's sculptural accessories, chunky cuffs, pebble-like necklaces, organically shaped plates, are rendered in bold, spectrum colors. The marbled, translucent, or pigment-saturated resin sometimes combines with sterling silver, gold, brass, wood, or stone. It's the fun of experimenting, Orm notes. Alongside their studio output, which includes a collaboration with Louis Vuitton, Olson and Orm engage in their own art projects, recently the subject of an exhibition at Newcastle Art Gallery in Australia. Talent will out. When and how did you meet? Louise Olson, on the first day of art school in 1983. Classes were set up alphabetically and both our names begin with O. Sometimes you meet someone and get that feeling of destiny. You started out as vendors at Paddington markets? Stephen Orm: I sold jewelry to pay my way through art school. Lo, I was selling my hand-painted t-shirts to stores. So, we were both doing our own little creative endeavors. Dinosaur Designs started to support our art careers. Temple platters in resin from 2018. Photography by Saskia Wilson. How did you get into resin? So, I'd already been introduced to it as a surfer, fixing my board, but that type of resin is very different than the one used for casting. We met resin at the markets. We had been playing around with phemopolymer clay, hand-painting it and baking it in the oven, when we met Jeffrey Rose, a contemporary artist making little resin sculptures of, say, milk pouring onto cornflakes, the pop art versions of Japanese display food. He encouraged us to try resin, and it went from there. What draws you to the material? So, opportunity. Resin continues to show us new things. Resin's very fluid. It's a lot like paint in that you can mix it in any array of colors. We've been working with it for over 30 years and still don't feel we've hit its limit. Boulder platter and resin from the 2019 Lapis Landscape Collection. Photography by Eleanor Ackland. How do you develop a collection? Usually, we start with a title. We develop ideas in a sketchbook and then make prototypes, sculpting mainly in plasticine. Eventually, we end up with production molds from which items can be cast in multiples. You're both practicing artists. The Newcastle Art Gallery just had an exhibition of our paintings and sculptures. Stephen's been painting for quite a few years and I've started more recently. So, I have upcoming shows in London and at New York's Olson Gruen Gallery. Dinosaur really took over for quite some time because of its expansion. We still love it, but we just thought, oh my god, let's not forget why we started. Ormandy's alphabet sculptures in plywood at Olson Ormandy, a creative force, at Newcastle Art Gallery, Australia. Photography courtesy of Newcastle Art Gallery. You've also branched into sculpture. Stephen, what sparked the totems? So, the series grew out of the visual language of shapes I've been developing in painting. Having a sculptural practice, which I consider Dinosaur to be, I wanted to bring that to my art, creating shapes that could come together as a 3D collage, like Legos. I'd love to do more large-scale public sculptural work. I've done some in China but not yet in Australia. Do your art projects connect to or differ from your design work? So, they talk to one another, don't they? Yeah, very much so. It's all starting to relate. Art is not limited to one medium. Calder made jewelry, Picasso made jewelry and ceramics, Giacometti made housewares and furniture. So, we consider Dinosaur more artwork than design, to tell you the truth. We are obsessed with the quality of things. We apply the same visual rigor to a tiny bead as we do to a large table. Stone platter from the Crystallized Collection, 2018. Photography by Stephen Orm. ID, what inspires you? So, the natural world. The color palettes you find just walking around are incredible. LO, and the way nature takes time to develop and evolve is so interesting. Our current collection is inspired by lapis, that beautiful blue, to which we added clay and bone hues. And seaside living inspired our recent rock pool collection. ID, how do you approach color? LO, it's quite instinctive, like playing a piece of music, except you're playing with visual notes. Orm and these collage side tables, also resin, 2013. Photography by Nicholas Samartis. ID, what have been some milestones though the years? So, opening our first New York store, in 2002, on Mott Street. Then we moved to Elizabeth Street and now we're in a new store on Crosby Street, designed by BKH, which opened 2 years ago. LO, we wanted this one to be more like our Australian stores, lighter and brighter, a real backdrop for color. It's our little gallery in a way. Another milestone was the